Toby Perkins to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. It's a great pleasure to open the debate and to serve under your chairmanship. I'm delighted that so many honourable members have come along to support the raising of awareness around this crucial issue. I'd also like to thank the Backbench Business Committee for selecting this topic for debate under the auspices of that committee, and particularly to the Honourable Member for Southend West for his support in attaining the debate and support in promoting it too. I'd like to start by paying tribute to Adrienne and Leanne Lakin from Chesterfield, two of my constituents, and all of the fibromyalgia campaigners who bang the drum relentlessly to ensure that the voices of fibromyalgia sufferers are heard. Many of them are intending to come down to witness our debate today, and I know that their campaigning has been instrumental in persuading other honourable members to attend or to speak out on fibromyalgia. I was very proud to present the petition in Parliament, which had reached over 100,000 signatures on change.org, calling for fibromyalgia to be recognised as a disability and to call for greater awareness of and investment in the treatment of fibromyalgia. I recognise that the context of this debate spans the responsibilities of both the Department of Work and Pensions and the Department of Health, and hope that the Minister, in their response, will be able to pass on to their relevant counterpart those topics that are raised which do not directly fall under their purview. So, what is fibromyalgia? For those watching this debate who, like so many people in our country, are ignorant about a condition that so many people suffer from. Fibromyalgia is amongst a group of conditions often referred to as invisible illnesses, but the consequences of it are something that sufferers live with every day of their lives. Yeah, very happy.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for giving way and really do warmly congratulate him on securing this debate. And I think he was telling that he used the word invisible then, because isn't it the case that this isn't just about raising awareness, it's also trying to actually get to a stage where fibromyalgia is diagnosed far more easily than it is to?
Well, it's an excellent point, Mr. Bailey, and it's one I'll return to in a few moments. It's absolutely right that one of the major problems fibromyalgia sufferers experience is that it takes so long for their condition to be diagnosed, and I'll talk more about what more we can do to ensure that throughout general practice there is earlier diagnosis and better understanding. Fibromyalgia sufferers will experience many different kinds of symptoms, often a heightened sensitivity to pain and extreme muscle stiffness. They will also often struggle to sleep, which exacerbates, as we all know, the problems that they experience with the muscular difficulties and experience extreme fatigue. They also experience cognitive difficulties, not just headaches, but problems with mental processes, often known as fibrofog, and the inability to process things in the way that they did prior to suffering with fibromyalgia. And often, as if that wasn't enough, fibromyalgia sufferers are struck down with irritable bowel syndrome too. So it is a panoply of symptoms that mean that sufferers have a really terrible time. But often these symptoms are, for the general practice purposes, masked as other conditions, and so they go through many time-consuming treatments that don't actually get to the root of the issue. Give way to my honourable friend from Sheffield first.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way and congratulate him on securing the debate. Sarah, who's a young mother in my constituency, has fibromyalgia, which was triggered by the birth of the youngest of her 3 children. She describes a pain so severe that she can't even hug her kids, but talks about a PIP assessment process that has stripped her of her dignity through a lack of understanding. So would he agree with her that it's unintentional ignorance and a lack of knowledge of what a debilitating illness fibromyalgia is that needs to be addressed?
Well, I mean, I absolutely would agree with my honourable friend, and it's incredibly powerful for him to bring the experiences of his constituent. And I think it is only when we meet people who suffer with fibromyalgia and even more so for those who live with people who suffer with fibromyalgia, that we really get to understand what it is like to walk a mile in their shoes. And I think one of the reasons why we've asked the DWP to respond to this debate is because it is a condition that, on the face of it, the people who suffer with it don't appear to be so ill. When we actually hear testimony like that, we understand what it really is like. So I'm going to give way to my honourable friend for a moment, and then to the lady.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. I too, like other members here, have had constituents who've come to my advice surgery and complained that they've had fibromyalgia, but it hasn't been, quote, taken seriously. And all too often, it's not just GPs and clinicians, but also the Department of Work and Pensions, and indeed others in society who simply see this as aches and pains. And I think it's very, very important that, as he has done already, we develop the argument that this is far more than something which can be easily dismissed.
Well, again, I couldn't agree more with my honourable friend, and it is, I think, the reason so many people are actually here today on such an important day in Parliament, when there's so many alternative demands on our time, is because we have actually experienced what our constituents have experienced, and that's incredibly powerful. Wait till the lady.
My honourable friend for giving way, and does he agree with me that the fluctuating nature of the of fibromyalgia means that the DWP system is not sensitive enough to respond to the challenges that people face who experience fibromyalgia?
Yeah. But I absolutely do agree, and I think that it hits to a wider problem within the assessment regime, within our benefit system, which is that all fluctuating conditions, whether that be mental health, whether that be muscular problems along the lines of fibromyalgia, that any of these conditions that people experience and then find are better on some days, or conditions that are manageable if they take a huge amount of medication, enable them to actually get out of the house and quite often appear at a day of assessment when they're actually in a better condition than they would be on the majority of days, that the assessment regime finds it very difficult to deal with those kind of situations. Now, yeah, happily.
And congratulate him for securing this debate. My constituent Susan says that the pain that she suffers from this is so bad the only time she doesn't feel it is when she is asleep, and she mentions that it's not just that the condition isn't picked up of itself properly within the disability assessment, but that the impact of it on other conditions that she has, where it can exacerbate them and make them even more extreme, isn't being picked up. So does he agree that there is definitely a wider understanding of the effects of this illness within the disability system?
Well, I entirely agree with the honourable gentleman, and I think that it is that impact on the rest of the family, the caring responsibilities that then bestows upon those, and the extent to which that then restricts the ability of those other family members to develop their own earning potential, are additional added on consequences that mean the entire family of a fibromyalgia sufferer are sufferers too, and that's an incredibly powerful point. Now, estimates suggest that as many as 1 in 20 of us suffer from fibromyalgia. And since securing this debate, and as we've all heard already from the interventions that I've received, Mr Bailey, I've been contacted by many members of Parliament, by constituents and other members of the public to say at last someone is talking about a condition which I or my partner has suffered with for so long, and it felt like nobody understood. And the feeling of being misunderstood is one that is familiar to many fibromyalgia sufferers. Often employers will be baffled as to why an apparently healthy member of staff who on some days might appear to be the life and soul of the party, and on other days is appearing at work or unable to turn up for work because they are crippled by this condition. By the same perspective, those employees themselves will often feel tremendous guilt that a condition that so decimates their ability to contribute keeps striking them down. And this will often lead them to conclude that they must go into work, even though they're in extreme pain, and often make themselves even iller in the process. It truly is a vicious circle. Fibromyalgia sufferers are also misunderstood, as we've already heard, by those who assess them for benefits, such as PIP and ESA. as their conditions are variable and often able to be managed in the very short term. There are many fibromyalgia sufferers who've taken pills to help manage the pain and support them through an ESA assessment, only to discover that the assessment outcome bears little relationship to their own daily experience of living with fibromyalgia. I've had constituents speak to me about the fact that the tablets they took to enable them to get in a taxi, to get to their assessment, that enabled them to get through that assessment for an hour, then meant when they got home they were in bed for days afterwards. And they, I think themselves thought, if only the assessor could see me now, half an hour after the assessment, they would see why I'm unable to work. But I've been able to get myself through that assessment for reasons of trying to comply with the system to my own disadvantage. I have to give way.
The honourable gentleman is making an extremely powerful speech. And as I will say, my contribution, my wife is actually a fibromyalgia sufferer. And isn't it not the case that stressful experiences actually exacerbate the condition, leads to these hugely damaging flare-ups?
Well, I mean, that's an absolutely spot-on point, and one given from the powerful perspective of someone who knows what it is like to live with someone who is experiencing this, is experiencing fibromyalgia. And I will come on in a moment to some of the other things that are believed to be triggers for fibromyalgia, but he's absolutely right. And I think that we all know that one of our worries about the assessment regime within benefits is that the whole stress of that process, whether it be the stress of going through the assessment, whether it be the stress of believing that benefits are going to be taken away, whether it be the stress of wondering how you're going to feel the next day, and the incredibly sort of unhelpful situation where your income is tied to you being ill. So you actually wake up almost hoping to be ill to justify the income, while simultaneously, of course, wishing you were better because you want to be able to contribute, is something that is known much more widely in our benefit system, but fibromyalgia sufferers are very, very familiar with. Yeah, happily.
Congratulate him on securing the debate, and can I also congratulate him on the awareness day that he hosted last year. It was very informative and a very moving day. But what I would like to say in relation to all the things that have been said about sufferers is, does he agree without the help of support groups like the one in Newcastle, people with fibromyalgia really wouldn't perhaps have any other support outside to help them with benefit queries, managing their condition? And these are voluntary groups set up, and should we have more statutory groups to help people with this condition?
Well, I mean, I pay tribute to the voluntary group that she speaks of, and I think we all recognise the incredibly important role that voluntary groups of this sort play, and it's absolutely true that when you have a condition that is so misunderstood, speaking to other people who have experienced it, families that are supporting people who have experienced it, is incredibly important. And I think we're also all conscious that in an era where local government funding is cut, that often these charitable groups, these voluntary groups, are the ones that are seeing their funding cut. And these groups often don't require a lot of funding, but a small amount of core funding just enables the group to function. And so that is something that many of us are very concerned about. Now, I'm conscious there are a number of people that have put in to speak. I'm very happy to take those interventions, but also don't want to cut into other people's time. So I'll crack on a little bit, Mr. Bailey, and obviously if there are other pressing issues, then members are free to raise them. But it is hardly surprising that so many employers and assessment staff misunderstand fibromyalgia, when it is, as has been reflected already, so often misdiagnosed in the medical profession. Most fibromyalgia sufferers will live with a condition for over a year before it is diagnosed. And it is often the diagnosis of last resort, and means sufferers will often have gone through many painful months of ruling out various other explanations, taking other kinds of drugs that weren't actually relevant to their circumstances before the true cause of their pain is articulated. Yeah, happily.
The honourable member for giving way. And will he agree with my constituent Karen Mitchell, who has fibromyalgia, that actually medical help and support is very variable and varies greatly as to how well fibromyalgia is recognised, and that we need to ensure that there is consistent and helpful treatments available? Well,
I absolutely do, and the Honourable Lady will be pleased to know that I will be hot-footing it from this debate to health questions, where I actually have a question in about diagnosis of fibromyalgia in general practice, and other members might wish to leap on the back of that and make their own contributions, and the one that she's just made is a powerful one, because I think when there is this variability of diagnosis, and I've met a number of the different sufferers who have had different kinds of treatment. As a result of the treatment that they've had, they are present very differently at this moment in time. So that is something that I've seen with my own. Let me just make a little more progress, and then I'll come back to my friend. Even today, with all the medical advancements that have been made, fibromyalgia is a condition without a known cause or a known cure. There are many factors thought to contribute to the condition: abnormal processing of pain due to chemical changes in the nervous system, imbalances in chemicals in the brain such as serotonin, dopamine and noradrenaline. The condition often appears to run in families, suggesting a genetic disposition to it, and as we've just heard from the Honourable Gentleman, stressful events can also be a trigger. There are many people who are concerned that general practice training, which by its very nature is general, is inadequate on fibromyalgia, and that this is a cause of the delayed diagnosis. Now, the petition also calls for greater research into fibromyalgia, with over 70,000 patients diagnosed having made claims for PIP. It is clear that this is a widespread problem, but that number is estimated to understate the number of fibromyalgia sufferers by at least 90%. My honourable Mr.
Friend for giving way. Does he agree with me that it's absolutely vital that within each health economy that there is a clinical specialist in fibromyalgia, whether it's GP-led or specialist practitioner-led, in order to support people with fibromyalgia right through the pathway in accessing services, but also in management of their own healthcare?
Well, I absolutely recognise that, and I also recognise how stretched our National Health Service is more generally, and the need for us to have this specialist help as early as possible. And I think one of the things that's becoming clear is that the delay in diagnosis allows the condition to get worse, and it then adds to the costs of treating that further down the line. So anything that can be done to speed up the diagnosis will have many economic as well as medical benefits down the line. Now, whilst the suffering and economic cost of treating and supporting fibromyalgia sufferers is so large, and the knowledge base of what causes it and how to treat it is so small, this is an area that is ripe for further research. In the library note that we received before the debate, Mr. Bailey, we were told that in the last 5 years, funding applications for around £1.8 million worth of research were approved. Now, in a single year, and I appreciate why it's a false comparison, but I think it provides some context nonetheless. In a single year, the UK spends over £400 million on cancer research. I don't, of course, for a second underestimate the value of research into cancer, but given the problems that fibromyalgia causes and how long patients will live with it, surely we should be spending more than 0.5% of the investment into cancer research on researching this grave and widespread menace that is fibromyalgia. So what can we do to raise awareness of fibromyalgia? I think we will hear from the Honourable Gentleman on particularly that subject.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for bringing forward this debate. And as you can tell by the number of people that are here, many of us have been written to by our constituents. So I did a little bit of research, and it seems to me that the USA and Sweden both have good research teams in terms of looking at this condition and how it might help. Do you think the UK government should look at what Sweden and America are doing on this particular disease to see how we might be able to help out?
Well, I absolutely do, because Sweden and America are very different kinds of healthcare systems, but he's absolutely right to say these are two different healthcare systems that have world-leading research capabilities. Clearly, there is a big question in terms of future UK medical research around our leaving the European Union, where a great deal of medical research was much easier to do when you got 28 countries paying into it rather than just one. But whether we do it collectively with other countries or whether we do it individually, absolutely we have world-class medical research capabilities in this country, and we should be contributing towards the global knowledge base on fibromyalgia, and he makes a very important point in saying that. So what can we do to raise awareness of fibromyalgia? Well, here in Parliament, today's debate is just the latest step towards doing just that. We've already had the presentation of the petition. The Fibro campaigners also held a reception at Portcullis House where around 25 MPs came along to hear more about what life is like living with fibromyalgia. I was delighted that Adrian Lakin and Billy Joe Mansell were able to present at that reception and actually get across to the members of Parliament present a little bit about the impact that it's had. Today's debate is another important step. And we look forward to hearing more about the government's strategy on recognising the effects that fibromyalgia has on its sufferers and what more they will do to raise awareness. But the petition was also specific about wishing to see fibromyalgia recognised as a disability under the Equalities Act. And I know that this is an important and contentious issue. Providers of public services are required to make accommodations for people with disabilities. Many fibromyalgia sufferers would qualify as disabled in their own right, but each sufferer has to prove their own disability, and given that it is a condition that we've already heard can take over a year to be diagnosed in the first place, it is often quite a bit after that before people who suffer with fibromyalgia are actually recognised as disabled. And whilst many people manage their symptoms and go on to enjoy productive lives, the invisibility of the condition and the difficulty of diagnosis means that many fibromyalgia patients are not recognised as disabled and are often invisible sufferers. And as we've already heard today, that then has a knock-on impact on their family as well, who are often attempting to manage caring responsibilities alongside trying to keep food on the table because of the responsibilities that they have as the breadwinner in the house. So fibromyalgia sufferers would like government and the Department of Work and Pensions to recognise that once diagnosed, fibromyalgia sufferers should be recognised as disabled under the purposes of the Equalities Act and ensure that those people get any support they need to lead productive lives. Of course, different patients will have different attributes and needs, but it is a chronic condition that will not get better, and so ensuring they don't have to fight to be taken seriously is of real value. We have heard previously that fibromyalgia may affect as many as 5% of the population, yet less than 0.2% of the population are people who receive PIP due to fibromyalgia. So, Mr. Bailey, I'm delighted to set the ball rolling on this important debate. Look forward to hearing the perspectives of other honourable members. Fibromyalgia sufferers need greater certainty, they need greater research, they need greater awareness, and collectively we as a country need to do more to ensure that we not only understand but support them in their illness and in their desire to lead productive lives.
The question is that this House has considered the recognition of fibromyalgia as a disability.